Web shipbroker, shipping education on the web. An embargo is a government-imposed restriction on trade with certain countries or on certain goods. Embargoes are typically used as a foreign policy tool to exert political or economic pressure on a target country or to restrict the trade of goods that are deemed harmful or dangerous to the importing country's national security, human rights, or environmental well-being. Embargoes have a significant impact on maritime trade, as shipping is often the primary mode of transport for international trade. Embargoes can restrict the flow of goods between countries, disrupt established trade routes, and increase the cost of importing and exporting goods. This can lead to reduced trade volume and decreased economic activity, as well as increased uncertainty and risk for businesses engaged in international trade. One of the most significant impacts of an embargo on maritime trade is the disruption of established trade routes. Embargoes can prevent ships from entering certain ports or using certain waterways, which can result in significant detours and delays for vessels transporting goods. This can increase the cost of shipping, as well as the risk of damage or theft to the goods being transported. Another impact of embargoes on maritime trade is increased costs. Embargoes can make it more expensive to import and export goods, as traders may need to find alternative sources of supply or find new trade partners. Additionally, increased risks and uncertainties associated with embargoes can make it more difficult for businesses to secure financing for their trade activities, which can further increase costs. Embargoes can also lead to the development of illegal trade and smuggling. This can be particularly problematic for goods that are in high demand, as traders may seek to circumvent the restrictions imposed by an embargo by engaging in illegal trade activities. This can have negative impacts on both the importing and exporting countries, as it can undermine the rule of law and reduce tax revenue. Finally, embargoes can have political and economic impacts on both the importing and exporting countries. Embargoes can damage relationships between countries and reduce trust, making it more difficult to engage in trade and cooperation in the future. In some cases, embargoes can also result in retaliation by the target country, which can further escalate tensions and harm economic relations. In conclusion, embargoes are a powerful tool that governments use to exert political and economic pressure on other countries or to restrict the trade of certain goods. While they can have significant impacts on maritime trade, including increased costs, disruptions to trade routes, and the development of illegal trade and smuggling, they can also have broader political and economic impacts on both the importing and exporting countries. As such, it is important for governments and businesses to carefully consider the potential impacts of embargoes before implementing or complying with them. Examples of embargoes that have impacted maritime trade. United States embargo on Cuba. In 1960, the U.S. imposed a comprehensive trade embargo on Cuba in response to the communist government's expropriation of U.S.-owned property on the island. The embargo has had a major impact on maritime trade between the two countries, as ships carrying goods to or from Cuba have been restricted from entering U.S. ports. European Union embargo on Iran. In 2012, the EU imposed an embargo on Iranian oil exports in response to concerns over Iran's nuclear program. The embargo disrupted established trade routes for Iranian oil and led to increased costs for countries that relied on Iranian oil imports. In general, these examples demonstrate the significant impact that embargoes can have on maritime trade. Embargoes can disrupt established trade routes, increase the cost of importing and exporting goods, and damage relationships between countries. As such, it is important for governments and businesses to carefully consider the potential impacts of embargoes before implementing or complying with them. Thanks for watching.